Welcome to today's news wrap up. Let's dive right into the top stories making headlines today. A man in Brooklyn attacked 4 young girls with a meat cleaver before being shot by police. The incident occurred when an 11-year-old girl locked herself in a room and called 911, reporting that her uncle had stabbed her and her siblings. Police arrived to find the man holding a bloodied cleaver and ordered him to drop it, but he advanced towards them, prompting officers to fire. The girls, age 8 to 16, suffered serious injuries but are expected to survive. The suspect, identified as Loon Chang Chin, is in critical condition, and the motive for the attack is under investigation. A 5th child managed to escape and seek help while the mother was reportedly not at home during the incident. Sad story. A Mexican woman living in the U.S. without legal status publicly declared at an anti-Trump rally that she is undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed. Well, she should be, because they're going to send your dumb self back to wherever it is you came from. But social media users quickly notified the Trump administration, questioning whether she is intentionally provoking authorities. In response, the White House directed her to an app designed for self-deportation. Further investigation revealed that she is an activist and executive director of an organization advocating for undocumented immigrants. It remains unclear whether the administration will take additional action against her. I think they should. I mean, if you're this emboldened to come out and tell people that you're actually a legal immigrant, it's crazy. The situation has sparked discussions about immigration policies and political activism. 2 individuals in Florida were arrested for engaging in a bank jugging operation. It's a crime where suspects target people withdrawing large sums of cash from banks. The I'm gonna kill this name. I'm sorry I pronounced it wrong for the people that live there, but the Okeelola County Sheriff Office tracked the suspect after a vehicle break-in and apprehended them near a Bank of America. Both men, identified as Jose Pena Silva and Daniel Alejandro Campuzano Moreno, were found to be in the U.S., of course, illegally, and now face deportation. Of course, but we got judges like Judge Boberg, who probably would say we need to bring these criminals back to the country once we deport them. I mean, it's just ridiculous how leftists protect illegal criminals like these gentlemen. And I use that word gentleman lightly. Authorities explained that bank jugging involves observing bank customers, following them, and stealing cash when the opportunity arises. The incident highlights the growing concern over such crimes and the efforts to address them. Retired General Michael Flynn has called for an investigation into high-ranking officials from the Obama administration alleging they committed treason, and I would agree. In an interview, he urged the Justice Department to hold individuals accountable, mentioning figures like John Brennan, Jim Clapper, and Susan Rice, the usual suspects. They continue to come and push out propaganda and pretend like they're not. That's the crazy thing about it. But Flynn suggested that prison time could compel them to reveal who directed their actions. He also claimed that the Obama administration conspired to undermine the Trump presidency, accusing them of orchestrating a coup against the United States government. Despite being labeled a traitor himself during Trump's first term, he argues that the real betrayal came from those in power before him. The statements have reignited debates about political accountability and the handling of national security decisions. Michelle Obama's podcast, IMO, launched in mid-March, but has struggled to gain traction despite media promotion. Early episodes on YouTube initially garnered low viewership, though numbers have improved slightly over time. However, the podcast ranks poorly on Spotify charts, trailing behind less prominent names and established heavyweights like Joe Rogan. Critics suggest that Americans are increasingly disinterested in perspective from coastal elites, including the Obamas, following last November's election. And you got people like, what's her name? what's her name? Meghan Markle or whatever her name is. Another person that's having like no success when it comes to these things because we don't really care. We don't care about y'all point of view, and they're learning this the hard way. But the podcast challenges reflect broader shifts in public sentiment towards political and cultural figures. President Trump's recently implemented tariff policy, referred to as Liberation Day, has prompted over 50 nations to seek trade negotiations with the U.S. He emphasized that deficits with other countries are unacceptable, insisting that trade deals must result in either surpluses or break-even outcomes. Trump's negotiation style, based on the art of the deal, involves demanding more than expected, securing key priorities, and ensuring agreements benefit American workers. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's I'm a huge fan of as of late, reinforced this strategy, explaining that the administration is willing to endure short-term market fluctuations to provide relief for middle-class American burdened by debt. Critics, including hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, have raised concerns about potential economic instability, while others argue that the policy will reveal which leaders genuinely support American workers. And Buffett is a huge fan of what Trump is doing, surprisingly, as well. But Trump remains committed to reshaping the global trade system, prioritizing fairness and economic prosperity for U.S. citizens. The European Union has proposed a trade deal with the United States to eliminate tariffs on industrial goods, aiming to prevent a trade war. EU Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen announced the offer, highlighting its potential to restore investor confidence and stabilize markets. However, she warned that Brussels is prepared to implement countermeasures if disputes persist. The EU's trade envoy, Maros Sefcovic, emphasized the need for collaboration on strategic challenges like semiconductor leadership and critical minerals. Despite the overtures, tensions remain over existing tariffs on American vehicles and food imports, with the EU exploring diversification of trade partnerships beyond the U.S. President Trump. And President Trump continues to advocate for tariffs as a means to address trade imbalances and strengthening the U.S. economy. President Trump recently imposed tariffs on foreign imports are being hailed as a significant win for American industries, particularly the struggling seafood sector. Because, a lot of countries like in the EU do not allow for us to sell them our products, which is just not fair. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to American people. The domestic shrimp industry has been hit hard by unfair competition, with foreign suppliers benefiting from lower labor costs and weaker environmental regulations. Industry leaders argue that Trump's tariffs offer a much-needed chance to relieve to level the playing field and keep American businesses afloat. Nearly 95% of shrimp consumed in the U.S. comes from overseas, with imports surging in recent years. The Southern Shrimp Alliance praised the administration's efforts, citing concerns over subsidies and forced labor abroad that made competition nearly impossible. They're using child labor in most of these countries. But these tariffs align with Trump's longstanding commitment to protecting American workers and reducing reliance on foreign markets. Lastly, legacy media outlets are now covering scandals involving the Democratic Party that conservatives have criticized for years. Conservatives like myself have been talking about this for years, and now the mainstream media finally caught on to what we've been talking about. It's no longer conspiracy theories. The New York Times recently reported on Hunter Biden's alleged influence peddling with Burisma, years after other outlets like myself have already investigated the claims. I got a whole different channel when I talked about this to ad nauseum. But Hunter reportedly earned millions while serving on Burisma's board and sought State Department support for the company during his father's vice presidency. Allegations include coercing Burisma's CEO to pay for assistance in ousting a Ukrainian prosecutor investigating the firm. Before leaving office, Joe Biden issued a 10-year pardon for Hunter, shielding him from offenses committed between 2014 and 2024. This is unprecedented for someone to get a back pardon like that for 10 years. That's crazy. Critics argue that traditional media's delayed coverage undermines accountability and public trust. Well, that's all for today's news wrap up. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.